Welcome to the Meat and Potatoes podcast. We're here with Jason Smith and Creed Mangrum, who are the CEO and CTO respectively of Sponsor CX. How are you guys?
Doing great. Yeah, thanks for having us.
Doing really good.
I love when we have co-founders on because sometimes the answers don't line up. And I think that's a good example of a lot of things in life where you ask the same question and they're like, oh, a little off on there. So we'll see how you guys do.
We also don't have a hard time disagreeing with each other. So
Yeah, it's good. It's healthy.
Yeah, it is. It is. All right, let's start with you, Jason. The idea for Sponsor CX, where did that come from? A little bit of your history.
Yeah, so I started in the sponsorship industry. I started with when I was at BYU. I was an intern for the Utah Jazz, and I was the guy that was paid like $6 an hour to pull on the AT&T shoot for loot, like court, promotion and all of that. And I did that for a couple of years when I was at BYU. And then there was no real full-time positions afterwards. And so I just kept in touch with the Jazz, and a corporate sponsorship sales position opened up, and ended up coming on to the Jazz for a while. And so I worked there a handful of years, and then ended up transferring down to I changed my job down to BYU with an organization called ISP Sports that had just obtained the third-party rights holder partnership with BYU. And so I was down there to oversee that. And at the time, BYU was doing about $600,000 in sponsorship revenue. That was back in like 2006 or so, 7. And anyway, was there for a good 7-8 years, and we just blew it up from there and got it to about 9-10 million, over a 7-year period, and ended up leaving there from being on the sales side of the business, and then went to the marketing side and the brand side, and was the VP of sponsorship for Mountain America Credit Union for almost a decade. And it was while I was there that I started to really see the disconnect on not only sports organizations, but nonprofits and the arts and events and entertainment, how they were managing sponsorships, and it was messed up.
Yeah.
And so, started off with just an idea, and kind of sketched it out, and had a local company here kind of help me take it to Pakistan to build a beta version of Sponsor CX. And got it back, offered it to 5 people that I knew in the industry to use it. And 2 of them said, hey, this looks great, we'll pay you for it. And 3 of them were like, Jason, there's a lot more that we need to have here. And so just learned a lot from that. But I realized I couldn't scale really out of Pakistan. I needed a good tech partner, and good friend of mine who's one of the co-founders of Ko-Fi, Cameron Harris. He introduced me to his CTO, and we were talking, and he introduced me to Creed, and we got together at a Pizzeria Limon, and we had Creed going on the loudspeakers, and we just knew it was destined at that point, and we became partners.
Very cool.
That's actually true. It sounds too good to be true.
Yeah, but it
that
was.
actually happened.
That actually happened. Creed was playing. Yep.
And this is not sponsored by Pizzeria Limon, to my knowledge.
It is not. No.
Not yet.
Not yet. Exactly.
All right. So, Creed, you have a cool background. You studied computer science at MIT, right?
I did.
Doesn't get any better than that. And you played baseball at MIT.
I did, yeah.
So you can build the product, and you know what it's like to be in the center field and looking at sponsor signs. And probably being annoyed by some of them, I would imagine, from time to time. But talk real quick a little bit about your background and what your role here is as the CTO.
Sure. So being able to play baseball at MIT was really the best experience of my life, because at MIT, everyone knew you're not really there. Baseball isn't the most important thing in the entire world, because MIT's put more people on the moon than in the big leagues. So that's not really why you're not there to play baseball for a long time.
Yeah.
But everyone that's there is really committed and super hard workers. Some of the best people I know were my teammates while I was at MIT. And so there was just this really sweet spot of being able to still focus on school and focus on education, but really have an awesome competitive environment with teammates that push you and care about you, and then have some really, like, we had some really strong, solid seasons too. So it was high level of competition, but still could focus on some of the things that were most important for everyone that was there. So I really, really love being able to do that, being out in center field and just getting to play ball in Boston. I'm a huge Red Sox fan. So, you know, we would have our games. MIT's campus is right on the Charles River. And so the Fenway Park is right on the other side of the Charles River.
Mm-hmm.
And so we would be playing our games and we could hear when like something big happened. You could hear the stadium, you could hear, you know, hear a ball go out. You could hear the whole, you know, the whole place would go crazy. So that was like, it was just being part of that atmosphere added so much to it.
Oh, heck yeah. That is so cool. How many Red Sox games have you been to?
I don't even know. I lived on Boylston Avenue, like right around the corner. So pretty much any day, if I wasn't slammed for tests or anything, I would just walk over in like the 4th or 5th inning and just basically be able to walk in. So I went to more games than I can even remember.
Yeah, because they used to have like standing room tickets, right?
Standing room tickets, and you could just go in and go up on the pavilion or just kind of be pretty much anywhere in the bleachers. But the best game I ever went to was the Clay Buchholz no-hitter in 2007. So
very cool. Yeah, I don't know if heaven exists or not, but if it does and they don't have like Fenway Park there, I don't know if I want to stay. Because I've only been to 2 games, but it was earth-shatteringly awesome. It was amazing. So I'm kind of jealous of your exposure there to Fenway. But you also learned how to program.
I did.
And that's how you guys have met here. So very cool story. For those that don't watch sports or go outside, they won't know what we're talking about here, but everyone else will have a pretty good understanding of, we have a stadium made out of concrete and wood and things like that. And we have a team that theoretically is fun to watch. Those are eyeballs. They have money. We should monetize this thing, right?
Yeah.
And maybe I'm oversimplifying it, but guaranteed the first person that thought of it was like, well, look at all that space there. Why don't we put a sign up for a law firm or, you know, some cooper to get our shoes recouped?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
They're not called coopers. Those are the wine barrel makers, but cobbler.
Yeah.
You know,
Yep.
but there's obviously a lot that's gone into it over the century and a half that somebody decided to do that. And for, you know, the AAA baseball team that does have 5,000 fans, right? Like they've got costs and they've got payroll, and this is how they either make or break it usually is like sponsorship. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, sponsorship has its role in the whole business ecosystem of a, you know, sports organization. And there's cost that goes into it, but it's revenue generation, right?
Yeah.
I mean, ticket sales and concession sales are a big part of it, but sponsorship is ginormous, right? There's a huge, it's a huge market, and there's millions and millions of dollars. I mean, it's a nearly $100 billion global industry. And so it definitely needs to be managed in a way that you can show these brands that are associating their names with the name of the organization, whether it's the Red Sox or the Salt Lake Bees or a nonprofit organization, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes donation sponsorship are different, right? Donations like, hey, I'm going to give you money just because it's the right thing to do. I care about this cause. Sponsorship is a little bit different. Sponsorship is, I'm going to give you some dollars here, but I expect some sort of a return on my investment back, right? Even if it is to a nonprofit, a lot of times they'll give it just to give.
Yeah.
But even if there's a logo there, there's some sort of recognition that needs to come back, you know? And so you have to look at it and go, okay, if I want this brand to continue to support my organization, then we need to make sure that we're managing it the right way.
Yeah. I know this all too well. Silicon Slopes is a nonprofit, and we derive the vast amount of our revenue through sponsorship. And I remember learning that the first day on the job when this was just a nascent organization. And we had like a 4-page Word doc that had green and blue and black diamond, right? And you got this, and this.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
still exists somewhere here, right?
Some packages.
Yeah. And, if you have a baseball stadium, you've got a lot more, right? Ours was like events and logos, and literally it was you get your logo on the TV screen because we have people come here. Not that different than like your logo up on the Jumbotron at a baseball game. But it comes at you fast, right? Like, what value do we have? And why would somebody want to be a part of that, right? Like NASCAR is a funny one because there's like 80 logos on a car, but they do it year after year because of the ROI. And oftentimes, like, maybe we can talk about this. You do get your logo and all of that, but there's oftentimes more that comes with like tickets and kind of sitting behind the scenes with the highfalutins and, just having a fun time. You've lived in both sides, right? You were on the BYU side and then the Mountain America side. We've dropped the ball plenty with like failure to send logos or failure to like sign contracts. And I assume this is part of the genesis of Sponsor CX. Is that correct?
Yeah. I mean, it's managing it all the right way. Managing your accounts, contacts, all the way to what is the available advertising sponsorship inventory that I even have to sell, right? And what rate am I getting for that? And are we maximizing the assets the way that we should, like those sponsorship assets? Packaging those together, building, these customized sponsorship packages, right? I don't even really like to use packages, but sponsorship partnerships.
Mm-hmm.
And then at least within our software, you're able to kind of manage all that there and then be able to produce like your proposals and your term sheets and your legal agreements, get them signed, uploaded, and then it pushes it into an activation fulfillment portal where you can really start to check, the mark off the tasks and the proof of performance and make sure that it's done and be able to collaborate with the partner in the platform, right? So there's this high accountability and visibility of what is going on, so that they want to come back and be there. And that it's always easier to keep partners than to go out and like lose them and then have to go out and find new ones.
Yeah,
right.
For sure.
Jason always says the easiest part is selling the sponsorship. The real work starts after you sell it.
Yeah.
You've
100%.
said that a few times.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's easy to go to lunch.
And so I think that's one of the things that's cool is we really have this whole end-to-end view of the whole sponsorship. Like you said, things fall through the cracks and the partner may not even know. And they want to know at the end of the day, like, oh, did you do what you said you were going to do?
Yeah. And this is a stereotype, but oftentimes the sponsorship sales folks are not overly technical and they're not really good with attention to detail. They're really good at going to lunch and schmoozing. And some of them have admitted this, right? In my interactions with them, like, I wish I just could not be in front of this computer. I wish I could just be out there in front of people. So I assume, for you, Creed, like making it as easy to use as possible on the back end is like critical. How do you guys think through that as a team?
I think in our ethos is like how we build product. Simplicity is the most important thing that we ever try to do. In the world of CRMs and sales software, it's easier to find a new feature or find anyone that can just throw something together. But finding a piece of software that actually helps and guides you through the process and is easy and simple to use, I think is what really helps separate us and what is our most important factor. We've had feedback from several of our clients where they have people that are on the older side that use it and they say, this is the easiest software that we've ever used. And I think to me, that's some of the best feedback that we can get because we're really making something that's complicated, potentially simple and easy. And that's, I think you can correct me, but I feel like that's our number one. Whenever we design something, whenever we think of a new feature or product, it's always, how do we make this as simple as we can make it?
Yeah, I mean, you nailed it. Salespeople don't want to be stuck behind a computer. They want to be out, schmoozing and having those discussions. And if we can take a complicated process and make sure it's simple, like Creed said, then we're winning.
Yeah.
Right. So
let's go back to kind of the early days. You mentioned you got 2 out of 5 that said, yeah, we'll pay you for this.
yeah.
But inevitably somebody's like, almost, or you're halfway there. And that's why
Which happens.
Yeah. You need somebody like Creed that can be like, okay, boom, let's get cracking on that. So I'm thinking, my head's spinning right now. I'm thinking like NASCAR, Formula One, like the stadium owner, the ownership group, the sponsorship person that wants to sell inventory. And I don't even know which one's the most complicated and which one's the most softball right down the middle. But I assume the ROI for these organizations, whether it's a single NASCAR team or like AT&T Stadium, Dallas Cowboys, they're able to see much clearer and cleaner, like, oh, we're all lined up and the ROI on this particular Sponsor CX software is X. Would that be accurate?
Yeah, I think it's in sponsorship, it's all within the eye of the beholder, right? So if I'm a certain brand, looking at a sponsorship, let's just say I'm a credit union, right? I might be more interested in driving more new accounts, right? But on the reverse side, you might have Nike, who, of course, they want to sell more shoes, but maybe their association with a certain organization is that they want brand awareness,
Mm-hmm.
right? So logos and TV visible exposure, like that's important to them. But with the credit union, hey, I want to drive more accounts. So there's a handful of different ways that you look at it. You could go, okay, well, do you want to focus more on brand awareness? In the instance with the credit union where they want to drive more new accounts, they probably want a little bit more actionable marketing assets, right? Like promo code associated with it. How can I really track this? Then you've got the business development side of it, of like tickets, for example, or hospitality or premium hospitality suites. How can they track some of that to help drive some big dollars, back to the brand,
Yeah.
right? Or media might be important to them. It's just all straight like radio or TV, and just have some of those big impression points. There's so many different ways to like skin a sponsorship,
Yeah.
right? So and so you just have to look at it and based on that, in one organization, like, Real Salt Lake, for example, they're going to have different brands that have different focuses on what they need, and they have to have the flexibility in order to build what is needed for that brand, and then just be able to show it on the back end that they actually did it for them.
Yeah. An example that I'm thinking of right now is the Utah Warriors rugby team, right? I don't know if they are a client, but they're a 5-year-old rugby startup. And I'm thinking through, like, I've been to 4 or 5 games every year. And in doing that, you can see the evolution of their business development / like sponsorship. And it's going very, very well. But that doesn't just happen naturally, right? Like,
Yeah.
There's a lot of work that has gone into that. So just using them as an example, or, just an upstart sports team, they reach out to you or you reach out to them. The deal is like solidified. What happens from your guys' perspective, like with the onboarding? How often do you work with the client? How often do you adjust? How does that work?
I think from my perspective, we are very, customer driven in how we think about what we build. So we actually have a pretty tight relationship with our clients. We communicate with them pretty regularly. The onboarding varies based on the organization. We've had some where we onboard in a couple days. We've had some where it takes a little bit longer depending on what they're asking for. But we try to work really closely to build something that's going to really work for every client that we brought on so far. So I think usually when a client, like if the Utah Warriors were to come on, we would work closely with their team and figure out how what workflow is going to work best for them. Do they have any integrations with other CRMs? Do they have any accounting integrations? What features within our software do they want on or off? And then we collaborate with them in getting their current existing data, which for a lot of places is in spreadsheets.
Yeah.
So that's typically how most people are doing it these days, is they're using spreadsheets. And so we work with them to get their spreadsheets, all their data uploaded into Sponsor CX, and then provide training. And then for the most part, they're kind of off to the races. We hear some feedback on some features they might want or little changes here and there. But for the most part, for most of our organizations, it's pretty much once they're on and going, they're kind of off to the races. So it seems to be pretty good and work pretty well for most of the organizations that want to come on and try to use it. So
Yeah, and we love the Utah Warriors if they're listening. We'd love to work with them.
Yeah.
But we do work with NOLA Rugby,
Mhm.
and they just got back to us the other day, and just were to our customer success team saying, "Man, that onboarding process was seamless. This platform is super easy to use and intuitive. It's kind of a testament to what Creed just outlined. I mean, try and make it as easy as possible.
Some of them have not been seamless.
Yeah,
No,
no,
it never is.
yeah. Sometimes you have challenges, but we work with them and we make the best experience possible.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I'm looking at this, you guys and your company, from like the stadium or the ownership group or the nonprofit, but could the brands also reach out to you like, hey, I'm an upstart sneaker brand. I would like to have sponsorship and exposure with like marathons or 5Ks. Does it work the other way as well, where it's the brands reaching out?
Yeah, I think we actually are in the process of rolling out what we call our current product is what we call our property product.
Yeah.
And here in the coming months, we'll have what we call our brand product. So kind of the reverse side of it. And a lot of that will stem from just feedback that we get from brands, but also, I mean, I sat on the brand side for nearly a decade as well too. And we already have a ton of brands that are like thirsting for this as well too. So we're excited to be able to have that as well.
Because there really isn't much for brands, and brands have a unique position in sponsorship where they don't know, historically, they don't really know what they're getting.
Yeah.
If the property provides it, great. If they don't really have an idea. A lot of it's just, I think that this is good.
Yeah.
And I trust that they're doing what they're doing. But in our current product, the properties can invite brands to use the software. So there already is some aspect of that brand aspect where they can see what tasks need to be done. They can complete tasks from their end. They can approve artwork. They can see these proof of performance, like videos or images of like their sign up. I always think, and will always think of the Tiger Woods putt at the Masters from way on the other side of the green, where it rolls all the way up and then just hangs right on the corner with the Nike logo just perfectly centered in the frame. And it's like, how much has Nike gotten on an ROI from that sponsorship over the history of everything? But it's like those types of things and opportunities are what we're really trying to bring and make visible, so that if you get somebody that takes a photo of somebody, with a header at the RSL game with your brand right in the back, or you got, Julio Jones making a one-handed catch.
Yeah.
And all of those types of moments can be like priceless for a brand and for a property.
Yeah. And I love that there's a bit of luck in that, right?
Yeah.
Nike doesn't make golf balls anymore, but they had a good run. And how lucky were they that it just sat there for 3 seconds?
Yeah.
I'm sure Titleist and Callaway and all the others are like, oh, come on.
Yeah,
They're already like doing pretty good. Like that would have been great for us.
They got other stuff in golf, right?
Do you guys have like a hit list, like your Nirvana? Maybe for you, it's Fenway Park becomes a client, right? Is there like, do you have any worries, like if a big old, like the Olympics or something big reached out, could you scale with them? So I guess the question is dream clients.
Yeah, I mean, you already said it for me. Dream client would be the Red Sox. I I was on a demo call with a team with someone from the Red Sox recently, and it was like, I go on some demo calls. Sometimes they probably try to keep me away from them, but I was on this one, and it was a little bit hard to contain my excitement. So I think I made it a little harder to sell it. But no, the Red Sox for me is a dream client. But I think the cool thing is we've onboarded a couple really complex organizations, and to me, I don't know that it gets much more complex than what we've already worked with.
Oh,
I
that's
mean,
cool.
I probably should not like say things like that, but
Yeah. Well, any complexities that happen, where you're onboarding an organization that has, multiple properties, right? Like 40, 50 of them. There's a lot of complexity that comes with that, but going through that only makes you better and better too, right? But for me, the dream, I grew up in Portland, Oregon, so I'm a huge Portland Trailblazer fan. They would be, they're kind of nirvana for me, but hopefully Damian Lillard sticks around. But yeah, I think just any iconic, sports organization is just awesome for us. We can't really get into it here. We're about to close on our first NFL team, in the next month or so, and that's exciting. Like that's a milestone for us, right? To be able to have something like that. So we work with other Big Five sport teams too, but NFL is it's the NFL, right? So it's exciting.
I bet.
But the cool thing is that I think we've talked a lot about sports, and you mentioned your nonprofit, but I feel like there's so many different organizations out there like that just exist because of sponsorships. And I think like I love going to the Hale Center Theater and being able to support an organization like them for me is like amazing. And I think that there's so many cool, things you don't traditionally think of as like, oh, they have sponsors.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of like really fun organizations out there that maybe aren't even doing sponsorships that should be doing sponsorships.
Yeah.
Or like YouTube content creators that could be managing their sponsorships through Sponsor CX. And I think there's so much out there that it's just, for me, it's really cool to be a part of what feels like a changing and evolving landscape. It's not just some process you're fixing that's needs to be made digital.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of really cool organizations that are just fun to work with.
Yeah, absolutely. Like when I go to Thanksgiving Point or the aquarium, or when I watch PBS, This Old House, I'm loyal to those sponsors of those groups way more than like the drink sponsor for a sporting event, right? Because it's fun, but it doesn't like wildly impact the world like some of these other nonprofits do.
And sports are fun to talk about, but I created this company for sponsorship generally, right? Mm-hmm. So it's just as exciting for me to see a sports organization come on as it is for me to see
water conservation.
The Water Conservation Association
or Lung Cancer Association.
Yeah, exactly, right? So it's awesome to be able to provide a solution for some of these other like large organizations that are doing really good things
absolutely
in the world.
For sure. And you guys have raised money, correct?
Yes.
What was that like? How much did you raise, and what knowledge can you pass on to others that might have to go through that fun process?
I'm glad you threw fun in there.
Yeah. Do you want to start?
You can start.
You want me to start? All right. No, it's awesome. I mean, when I was kind of bootstrapping this on the side, while I was still at Mountain America Credit Union, I quickly realized that, and Creed also had his job too. We kind of really realized that we need to leave our jobs in order to really make this go. But we've got families, we've got, some, commitments and things. And so, if we were younger and things, maybe we could have just bit the bullet and just left without any, securities there, but we needed to. So I actually got introduced to Jeff Birmingham, and many who are listening, know Jeff. He's invested in many tech companies along I-15 here. But him and his two partners, Jeff and Jamie, were amazing. Like I met with them, and they immediately saw the vision, and so we raised a small seed round of funding. Let's see, that was back in
It was October 2021.
Yeah, October 2021, and that's when Creed and I stepped away from our jobs, and we hired a couple of other people to join us, and we raised a small $750,000 round, stepped away, and just blew up in 2022, and then we raised another round from Blueprint Equity out of San Diego just this last November, in our Series A. And it's kind of a tranche 1, tranche 2 type of investment. And so we got our first tranche in November, and the goal is to raise that next round here in the next 6 months or so.
Very cool.
So,
and obviously the local connection helps a lot, but with the fund out of San Diego, how did that connection happen?
I think that one was really funny because we were about ready to kind of go a different direction with our funding opportunity. Last year we were fundraising for a while, trying to find the right fit, the right deal that made sense. And so we were basically ready to kind of just like take our next step forward. We had just had a meeting that morning about kind of going with our plan, and then Blueprint called that day, right? You had your first call with Blueprint the same day as we were had made a decision, and then they said, "Can you wait?" And then we talked to them more, and it seemed like a really great fit in terms of investors. I think working with investors can be difficult, and it can be hard, and it can be a really tough process to even raise. It feels like you're getting stripped to the bone. It's like all of the negative things. It feels like you're getting poked and prodded all over. But if you can find the right partners that are willing to work with you, it can be a huge boon to your company, just to highlight your blind spots, to help you where you need to grow, and to kind of push you where you need to go. But with all relationships that kind of draw out those things, there's things that make it uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I think it's if you're going to fundraise, recognize that it is two-edged sword that both cuts and helps
For
at the
sure.
same time.
Yeah. You guys have kind of insinuated on some really cool things happening, like the NFL deal, and you're knocking on wood a little bit here. Kind of a brand focused rollout here, but you guys are clearly having fun on the journey. What are you looking forward to the most for the next 18 to 24 months as you continue to build this out?
You to go first?
Yeah, go for it.
Oh, well, I'm looking most forward to really getting back on the innovative side of things. I feel like our product development pathway we built a lot of really cool stuff, and then we got a bunch of clients on, which is really great. But for the last while, it's been pretty reactive because we were in new product land with new clients that all needed things that were maybe a little bit different. And our number one responsibility is to do the best we can for our clients. And so we've been really reactive for the last little while. And for me, I'm just really looking forward to getting back to, we have some really cool things coming up and in the plans. And I think in sponsorship, there's so many just fun things that we can do. If we have the brand product and the property product, you really have two sides of people that need each other. And I think there's a lot of really cool, fun things that you could do to encourage more and more sponsorship relationships going on than even exist right now. And I think there's a certain size on what our market is that I think people think is what it is, and it might not be very big. But I think once we get to some of that, I think you really just get into this kind of limitless land where you can't even really put a number on what we could do.
Absolutely.
So I think there's so much in front of us, so much innovation, that I'm the next 12 to 18 months, I think, are going to be really, really fun because we're finally like, it feels like we can start opening up and running a little bit again.
There you go.
Yeah, and I would say there's so much that we can do with data and AI and predictive analytics and some of those things, and we're having some, as Creed mentioned, some really fun ideas around that. And so that's where I start to get really excited, is seeing what we can do with that and revolutionizing the industry. I mean, I want to see Sponsor CX be a global product used in the industry, that once there's an organization, the industry standard, right? Like when someone needs to manage sponsorships, where do they go? They go to Sponsor CX, manage it.
Very cool. Jason, Creed, thank you so much for taking the time. Congrats on all of the success you've had up to this point. And I personally will be watching a lot closer after this podcast, because we live in a little bit of the same world from time to time.
Love it.
It'll ruin all sporting events for you going forward if you're paying too much attention.
Yes, it will. Yes, it will. Cool. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.